I was just wondering if you had any advice for when people have unhealthy attachments to us, even when you are trying to let them go. I have someone who is very attached and it's using guilt to keep me from leaving. Any input on how to handle this would be appreciated. Thanks. Hey Megan, thank you so much for your question. So just to be clear with people, this is a person, a human problem that we're talking about. We're not talking about non-duality as such, although non-duality is the absolute freedom. So seeing right now that that person with the problem isn't who you actually are, there's something that's looking at that, this stillness. But on the human level, this is a valid problem. How do we deal with that? All of us have to deal with that, including me. We all have to deal with people trying to use guilt as a tactic to get what they want. And I'm sure all of us are guilty of it as well, that we've used guilt in order to get what we want. I can't say I'm innocent of that. I'm sure I've done it too. And it can vary. It can be like a momentarily thing. Like if we want someone to carry our bag, we can maybe look, or it can be something bigger, like using it constantly to stay child. So for example, this might not be you, Megan, but just to talk about the subject, you might be a character that's never properly detached from the authority figure and doesn't really fully want to stand up in life and take responsibility. And this is why I realized over speaking for many years that talking about there is no responsibility ultimately isn't good on a human level, because that often attracts people that don't want to take responsibility for their life. And taking responsibility for your life is human, and it's part of the path of the human. That's an important part, to stand up and take responsibility for what's happening and to change what's happening. If you begin to get into this idea, which you'll already have it, so you'll already not be wanting to take responsibility for your life, and then what happens is you hear non-duality, that ultimately on the human level you're just a product of everything else, you're a product of everything. Then what happens is that adds to that, and it gives another excuse to not stand up. If you don't stand up, you're always going to be feeling the pain of not standing up, so you're going to have more pain. Even though in the short run it's painful to stand up and take responsibility for yourself, in the long run you're going to experience more pain, because you're going to see everyone else around you grow up and take responsibility and move on with their lives, and you're not going to. And you're going to be dependent on other people. And it's also going to increase your fear, because on one level you'll fear that you can't do it, and you'll fear that you are dependent on other people. And there's many reasons why people do that. There's such a variety of reasons that happens to people. And that's something that you have to work through slowly to understand yourself, and bit by bit become more conscious of what your unconscious is saying and what your dark side is saying. So I can't diagnose what's happening there, Megan. I'm just giving some information which might help you question your situation and move you on to other information, or to look at it in further detail. And then you've got to see what you get out of that situation. So by not moving on, so you want to move on, but by not moving on, what do you get out of that situation? By staying there to relieve your guilt, what does that give you? In the short term, it might give you relief, but in the long term, it's not going to give you relief, because you're still going to be in a situation which you don't want to be in. And that situation on a daily basis is going to keep giving you pain. And it's going to lead to all other thoughts that you're not worthy of something else, that there's loads of different thoughts and feelings that will come with that. So why is it on the human level that you aren't moving away? And for the answer for all these things, you've got to get to know your body and what your body's saying. And keep going underneath it. So what's underneath that feeling? What's underneath that thought? And not in a way to shame yourself or say that you're bad. Like, you've got to look at all of this as positive. So recondition yourself. So every time you get to know yourself a bit better, it's like bing, bing. That's great. It's not a dysfunction every time you get to know yourself better. When you realize that you've been acting out of fear or shame or something. That's not a bad thing. That's not something to be more shameful for. That's a great thing. Because every time you get to know yourself better, your life will change on the human level for the better. But again, don't be dictated to by what I say or what other people say. You've got to begin to explore and get to know your body better. So I would suggest meditation to get to know your body better, to understanding the chakras, and examining your thought processes and your actions as well. Like an investigator. What does this mean? Thanks, Megan, for your question.